where I stand on storytelling in video games. Sure, some video games craft a compelling, well-told story. They're outnumbered like 1,000,000 to 1. In fact, I think there's an argument to be made that stories, good stories, are less suited for video games. After all, telling and playing operate on two very different levels of engagement. Though mentally engaging, consuming a story is a passive experience, and playing a game, on the other hand, is predicated on interaction. And over the years, video games have had a hard time bridging that divide. Like, I guess it's easier when you can move flying houses. Where other games fall all over themselves, this one sprints. Where other developers doll up their games with overambitious stories, the team at Minority makes theirs shine. Papo and Yo isn't the most interesting game I've ever played, but it's one of them. And a few hours with it was all it took for me to reevaluate my position. Maybe games can weave good stories. Maybe all we needed to clear the gap was a little imagination and a toy robot. Unfortunately, Papo and Yo has both. And if you couldn't tell, it also has a story. This is a puzzle platformer that puts you in control of a small boy who needs to manipulate his environment to escape, all while being hindered by a monster. Of course, the whole thing is actually a metaphor for something much more meaningful. The truth is, this surreal world actually is the escape. Faced with a traumatic reality, the boy's imagination sets the stage, a place where he can run away, and where he has the protection of his favorite toy robot. Papo and Yo is an incredibly emotional story about the horrors of childhood trauma and how monsters are sometimes very real. The gameplay ties into the theme beautifully. The little boy uses his imagination to do the things he wishes he could do. And for us, it makes for solid puzzle platforming. It's usually about pushing imaginary switches and pulling levers, making the ground peel away and the walls turn into stairways. Now, there's just an innocence to it all that makes the game feel so childlike. That is, until the monster gets his hands on the poison frogs. That's when the charm turns to sheer terror, and even in his imagination, the little boy has to run and hide. By tying its story to its gameplay, Papo and Yo manages to genuinely move you. It's a really special piece of design. Although, to be fair, there are some problems as well. The puzzles are very basic, the game isn't very long, and there are some technical issues, but ultimately, the concept is so good and works so well, it never really hinders the experience. Or at least, not for me. And I'll grant you the fact that Papo and Yo is far from perfect. But a few hours with this game did something few others have ever done. It moved me. And for that alone, Papo and Yo is worth the escape.